This is a ballet called Five Tangos by Hans van Manen, a Dutch choreographer. This is myself, and Mark's here with our partners.
We met in the early 70s at the Royal Ballet School when we were aged 11. We went right through the school together and ended up dancing in Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet under Sir Peter Wright's direction until 1990, when the company became Birmingham Royal Ballet, and I went to Birmingham for 4 years. And that was when you went to the Royal Opera House.
I moved to the Royal Opera House for the last 4 years of my career.
We were sort of mid-30s, and it does become a point, depending really on your body, on how you recover. We both decided we needed to retrain and do something else.
In my lunch hour, I started going to a local florist and got to know all the girls, and immediately I just felt so at home in the environment. So I phoned Mark up and I said, oh, how about a flower shop?
If I can just add to that, it wasn't just, how about a flower shop? It was a, oh, it'll be easy. All we need is a bucket and a cold tap.
Yes, well, that's true. In our chaos.
We got help from the Dancers Trust, who helped dancers retrain. They put us through a floristry course and paid to get the doors open on the first day, the 2nd of December 1990, here in Great Queen Street. There is a long history of ballerinas being given flowers on stage. I can remember from an early age of about sort of 3 or 4, when I started going to the Royal Opera House, seeing all the ballerinas being given flowers, especially Margot. She would get armfuls of flowers, and she started the tradition of a single flower being plucked from the centre of her bouquet to be given to her male dancer, which was always charming. And some of the dancers now still do it, which is lovely. The tradition of the flower throw, as we call it, its heyday was in the sort of early 60s and 70s, started by a fan who used to queue for hours for tickets, and then he would go to the Floral Hall, which is now the Paul Hamlin Hall. At the end of the show, armfuls of flowers would be thrown down onto the stage, covering the stage. It's fantastic.
I think the architecture of the Opera House actually helps, because the Royal Opera House is a horseshoe, and so the audience sit right up against the proscenium arch, which is very unusual. So you can get a direct line onto the ballerinas' heads.
I mean, there's a famous story of Margot saying that she had one ardent fan. To make sure that he could get his flowers at her, he would often weight the flowers with a bit of lead, so she became very adept at dodging his particular bouquets that were sort of luzzed across the orchestra bit straight at her, poor lady.
If we pay cash at the market, we can get some nice cheap old blooms. So we're carrying on the tradition of the flower throw, which is really great.
As a man, we didn't often get flowers presented to us, but if you stagger through 4 acts for Swan Lake and your Odette O'Deal is given a wonderful bouquet of flowers, it just adds to the whole experience. And
to be on the Opera House is just unbelievable. My last performance was on Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet, and I had a flower throw. It's just incredible when you stand there. You just feel these stems falling on your head. It's incredible.
We always like to try and theme our bouquets as much as possible.
Hermanus we've just done, which is a lovely one, because the set's dominated by old rubber, huge old sort of dead rubber plants. I'm using this old foliage which I touch with black, then I'm using these dark red roses, twigs, black leaves, and then that sort of comes together with black tissue. And then I've got these wonderful ribbons I use, and then I've got this little jewel which sort of reminds me of a sort of mantilla or something, which I tie into the bow next to their name. So it's those little details.
This one that I'm doing here is painfully obvious. It's pink and fluffy for the Sugar Plum Fairy in Nutcracker. I
could never sit in an office, I needed to be doing something active.
We're both very lucky to have had 2 such wonderful careers. Mine was 16 years at the Royal Ballet Companies, Stephen's was a bit longer. I've now been a florist longer than I have was a dancer, but I think both careers have been wonderful for me.
And it's just lovely to be on the other side of the footlights now, giving those flowers and presenting them and buying them for flower throw.
Knowing what it feels like.
Yes, knowing what it feels like. I mean, it's lovely.